3 months after parting ways with my benefactor, he ran into me on a European street, supporting my pregnant belly as I left the hospital. Quite ambitious, but utterly foolish, the man remarked coldly. He sent his assistant to deliver a message, tossing me a card and ordering me to terminate the pregnancy. Mr. Jiang won't be manipulated by a child, and the Jiang family certainly won't open its doors to you because of some bastard. I suggest you know your place and abandon any foolish ideas. I declined the card with a smile. You're mistaken, this is my husband's and my child. We were married 2 months ago. It has absolutely nothing to do with Mr. Jiang. 1. London winters are perpetually bleak and damp, with a biting wind that stings your face for no good reason. Assistant Lin, standing before me, showed no change in his expression upon hearing my words. He merely feigned mild surprise and said, "Oh, really?" having spent so long by Jiang Linchuan's side. His ability to read people and situations had grown sharper by the day. His eyes, behind his glasses, swept over my abdomen as he inquired respectfully, "Miss Chen, how many weeks along are you?" "About 12 weeks. He gave a slight nod, the same gentle yet distant smile still on his face. "That timing is a little too coincidental with your departure from Mr. Jiang." As Mr. Jiang Linchuan's most trusted assistant, he had seen far too many women who would stop at nothing to stay by his side. I looked down and pulled out my phone. "Here's a photo of me and my husband," but he politely cut me off. "That doesn't prove anything. Mr. Jiang is very sensitive about the matter of illegitimate children. I hope Miss Chen understands the situation. Otherwise, Mr. Jiang wouldn't mind putting you on the operating table for an abortion a second time." My fingers, holding the phone, stiffened for a moment, and I glanced up slightly. The year's first snow began to drift down softly. My gaze collided with the dark, severe eyes of a man in a high-rise's floor-to-ceiling window. He was looking down at me, scrutinizing, perhaps waiting to see me caught out again, pale and flustered. He was accustomed to being in control, and my pregnancy was undeniably another challenge to his authority. I took back my phone, let out a deep sigh, and turned to tell Assistant Lin, "Please inform Mr. Jiang that I won't make the same mistake twice." My tone was quite gentle as I said earnestly, "I have no lingering attachment to the child I terminated, nor any intention of using motherhood for status or to vie for the family fortune. This child is truly, and only, my husband's and mine, too. I was indeed pregnant with Jiang Linchuan's child. That was my 6th year by his side. A little life, connected to me by blood, took root within me and miraculously rekindled my passion for living. At 17, I left my hometown for Beijing to pay off my father's gambling debts. I spent several years as a hostess in the glitzy, decadent nightlife scene. It's been a turbulent journey, with few relatives and even fewer friends by my side. That was the first time I had been so bold, keeping it a secret from Jiang Linchuan in the hopes of keeping it. It wasn't until a business dinner, when I was taking drinks for him, that I had to excuse myself to be sick several times. A woman who came with one of the vice presidents joked about whether I might be pregnant. I saw it clearly. Jiang Linchuan's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly, his gaze sharp and scrutinizing as it fell on my abdomen. He had no tolerance for surprises in his life, and this unexpected child had just stepped on every single one of his landmines. To make matters worse, I had kept it from him for so long. It was the first time he ever lost his temper with me, his words dripping with venomous sarcasm through gritted teeth. "I underestimated you, Chen Yang. You're quite something." With a face like ice, he threw me out of the villa and declared, "You have one night to think about what you've done. If you still don't know your place by morning, pack your things and get out." It happened to snow that night. A biting wind stung my face, gazing at the vast white expanse in the distance. I placed a hand on my slightly rounded belly, my eyes red-rimmed, and let out a soft, weary sigh. The tension that had gripped me for 3 months finally began to ease. Perhaps this wasn't such a bad thing after all. I tried to think nonchalantly. I was probably the only one among all his little flings who didn't get a penny in severance and even managed to piss him off. The fetus was already 12 weeks along by then. A forced abortion could have caused cervical tearing. On top of that, my years of drinking had left me in a very weak state. The doctor said if I went through with the abortion, I might never be able to have children again. But the man just stubbed out his cigarette, his dark eyes utterly unreadable. and replied flatly, "What does that have to do with me? In our circle, raising a child out of wedlock isn't exactly a difficult thing to manage." Even his high and mighty friends had half-jokingly suggested it, just have the baby and send it abroad to be raised. After all, you're in your 30s now, and she's been the only one by your side all these years. Having a child is a good thing. Jiang Linchuan remained silent. Later, after several rounds of drinks, a drunken guest teased, "Come on, Linchuan, you've kept her by your side for so many years. You can't honestly tell me you've never had any real feelings for her." Someone ventured to ask, "Could it be that you're still thinking of Kai Yu?" Regarding this white moonlight from his youth who went abroad and vanished without a trace, Jiang Linchuan merely cast a cold glance and said, "It has nothing to do with her." When the topic turned to me, he answered offhandedly, "She's just pleasing to the eye. I'll keep her around for a few more years. That's all. A lowly hostess is only fit to be a mistress, not a wife." He wouldn't want a child of such lowly status. I was good the whole time. I didn't shed a single tear the day I went to the hospital. Later, I nearly lost my life on the operating table due to massive hemorrhaging. I spent several weeks in the ICU before I finally pulled through. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, he actually cleared his schedule and came to see me. The man, dressed in a sharp, dark overcoat, fixed me with a cold stare and spoke with deliberate clarity. "Chen Yang, I could never marry you. I will only have a legitimate heir, not some illegitimate child who can't be acknowledged." I slowly pressed my pale lips together and offered him a faint smile. I know, that's exactly what he liked most about me, knowing my place, being sensible and obedient enough. Outside, the snow fell with a soft hush, and a howling wind battered the tightly sealed window panes. From the age of 17 to 27, it suddenly dawned on me that this was the 10th snowfall I had witnessed in Kyoto. A woman's most beautiful years were spent here as well. Perhaps because I apologized sincerely and had just brushed with death, he decided to let it go. The private hospital room was warmed by the heater. The man's cold, severe expression gradually softened as he picked up an apple and began to peel it. "I had my assistant pick out some bags and jewelry for you. They'll be delivered to you in a while." I watched quietly as the apple peel spiraled down in one long, continuous ribbon. The stinging wetness welled up in my eyes, but I fought hard to hold it back. A dusting of snow still clung to the man's long lashes. His expression was cool and focused, his movements meticulous. "You'll only be with me for these few years. Once I enter into my arranged marriage, I'll naturally let you go." He brought a slice of apple to my lips, his voice uncharacteristically soft as he coaxed, "Chen Yang, be good for me. I'll treat you well, I promise." 3. True to his word, he never mistreated me. Those 10 years by his side were truly the most glorious and triumphant period of my life. Even when Kai Yu appeared at the end, he never once let me feel the slightest bit of humiliation. I brushed the snow from my shoulder and told Assistant Lin to put Mr. Jiang's mind at ease. "I will go for a prenatal paternity test in a couple of days. In that case, Miss Chen, please let me know. I'll accompany you." He was clearly worried I'd try to pass off fake results. I nodded, "That's fine." He smiled as he handed me his business card, adding a pointed reminder, "Miss Chen, if you need anything, you can contact me. Mr. Jiang is getting married, so I'd advise you to be mindful of boundaries. The new Mrs. Jiang is quite sensitive about these matters. Don't worry." I already deleted all of Jiang Linchuan's contact information before I left. I changed my phone number and personal WeChat, and I even sold the apartment he arranged for me. If I hadn't run into him on the street today by chance, I thought we'd probably never be in touch again for the rest of our lives. And the new Mrs. Jiang is likely that white moonlight of his who just returned from abroad. I forced a smile and nodded. "Then I wish Mr. Jiang a happy marriage." Snow drifted down from the distant sky in flurries. I buried my face in my scarf, turned, and walked alone down the snow-covered street toward home. That dark, chilling gaze from the high-rise followed me the entire way. On a snowy night many years ago, as he carried my drunken self down the street, he made it perfectly clear that he would only marry for strategic alliance. Any relationship that fails to yield tangible value is merely a disposable commodity for a particular phase of life. He insists on a marriage of equals, with compatible social standing, to maximize mutual benefit. His provision for me was nothing more than a transaction with a clear price tag. I am lucid yet I am sinking. Only today did it dawn on me, rules are made for stand-ins like us. But the one true love exists beyond all rules. Even if she had nothing, she would still have his favor. 5. No one knew why the long-lost white moonlight from his youth, who had vanished abroad without a trace, had suddenly reappeared, but I knew. I had a bizarre dream. In the dream, she was a strategist who, after maxing out Jiang Linchuan's affection meter, returned to her original world. Over there, she got married and had children, but due to a life of hardship and her husband's infidelity, she chose to return to Jiang Linchuan's side, all to see if Jiang Linchuan still loved her. She specifically asked to see me before I left. In the cafe, a woman in a white dress, wearing no makeup, quietly assessed my outfit and appearance, though she tried hard to mimic the pure and innocent look of her youth. The weariness and calculation in her eyes couldn't be hidden. In contrast, I've been well nourished by wealth, exuding a relaxed and tranquil air, free from the worries of making ends meet. This stirred up a vague, inarticulate resentment within her. She only asked me 3 questions. How long have you been together? Or rather, how long have you been by his side? Holding my coffee cup, I said slowly and clearly, 9 years and 6 months, in the 7th year by Jiang Linchuan's side. We had a 6-month period of no contact. Some said he was entering an arranged marriage, others whispered he had found a more convincing lookalike. Just when I thought our relationship was about to be severed for good, one day, out of the blue, Assistant Lin reached out to me. After a night of passionate intimacy, he tacitly allowed me to claim the most important place by his side, leaving me as the only one there. The woman before me wore a displeased look in her eyes. She didn't want to hear such a clear-cut timeline, but I managed a slight upward twitch of my lips, feigning nonchalance. Has it been that long? Did you two do it? That was her second question. I was taken aback for a moment. She quickly realized herself how absurd the question sounded. It was a whole decade. After all, and Jiang Linchuan was a man with normal desires. It was impossible for him not to have felt any longing, but I didn't mind telling her what she wanted to hear. For the first 5 years, I didn't. Jiang Linchuan had truly waited for her. As if finally understanding her place in Jiang Linchuan's heart, she let out a sigh of relief. Her smile grew more genuine as she chided him with a hint of reproach. I see, so, I came back too late. She then asked her final question. Do you kiss when you do it? Kisses and caresses should be reserved for a lover. She desperately needed this point to be proven. In the stagnant air, her gaze was fixed intently on the shifting expressions on my face. For a fleeting moment, my mind went blank, and I answered quickly, no. The tension in her fingertips suddenly melted away, and all her anxiety and worry receded like a tide. In its place was the flippant, self-satisfied air of a victor. All right, I understand now. Thank you for taking care of Linchuan all these years. She finally offered a gracious smile, assuming the air of the rightful partner. Her tone laced with affectionate complaint. He's rather aloof and not the most considerate. I'm afraid he's put you through quite a bit. I didn't deny it, simply giving a soft amham in response. Having long anticipated this day, I didn't feel much emotional turbulence. I've seen too many infatuated girls in the nightlife scene who thought that sticking around long enough would earn them a proper title. It always ends in a messy breakup, with the official wife coming to issue a warning. I think, for a shadow replacement who can't see the light of day, I've been lucky enough. However, I did lie to her a little. Jiang Linchuan had no aversion to kissing, especially for those moods that could be soothed with a single kiss. He wouldn't waste time or energy dwelling on them. Occasionally, when sated, he would also hold me and plant absent-minded pecks. Truth be told, it wasn't exactly heartfelt, yet these moments, tinged with a certain warmth, always give me the illusion that he and I are just an ordinary couple. You see, it's always these utterly mundane little things that move a woman, making her willingly sink into it all in the end. Even I am not immune to this. 6. Winter nights always fall so quickly. When I got home, the nanny, with a mysterious look on her face, served me a small plate of truffle and mushroom pasta. She said it was a new recipe she was trying out and was hoping for my approval. I was taken aback for a moment. After a pause, I smiled apologetically and pushed the plate away. I'm not really a fan of pasta. My husband is away on a business trip, attending a training program in another country. Worried I wouldn't take good care of myself, he hired a cook for me. Feeling a bit embarrassed for not having figured out my tastes yet, the cook said she would make me something else. In the silent living room, a bright moon hung high outside the window, the crisp yet rich aroma of black truffle wafted up, pulling my memories insistently back to the past. Back then, in the recklessness of youth, I would go all day and all night. Once my strength was spent, hunger would always follow. That was the first time I stayed over at his place. It was a huge villa, yet there was hardly any convenience food stocked. In my early years, all my time was spent figuring out how to please the boss and earn more tips. I'd just grab a quick bite for dinner, never learned to cook, let alone use all those fancy gadgets in his kitchen. I could only rummage through the cupboard for some bread, then hide on the sofa and gnaw away at it. Perhaps Jiang Linchuan was in a good mood that night. Seeing my pitiful, starving state, he actually turned and headed for the kitchen. I waited, growing drowsy, when I groggily opened my eyes. All I could see was the dim, amber glow of the living room. An elegant yet languid man, wearing loungewear identical to mine, stepped toward me through the play of light and shadow. With his long, graceful fingers, he slid a plate of pasta toward me, his voice teasing, "Try it." Many times after that, whenever I saw truffles, I would think of that particular bowl of pasta. These small moments, time and again, pulled me back into that tender yet merciless web. I dug my nails into my own palm. If you want to completely detach yourself, you must stop touching anything related to memory. 7. On Monday, I took a sample of my husband's hair, sealed it in a clear plastic bag, and tucked it into my handbag. When I arrived at the hospital, I saw not only Assistant Lin, but also Kai Yu. Compared to her plain appearance that day, she now carried herself with much more elegance and luxury. She was carrying the latest designer handbag, and her heavy makeup smoothed over any imperfections on her face. Even the weariness in her eyes had completely vanished. Money truly is the best nourishment for a woman. I paused my steps and gave a slight nod. "Miss Kai." She didn't respond. The arrogance and displeasure on her face were barely concealed as her eyes swept back and forth over my abdomen. The atmosphere grew tense. Assistant Lin said respectfully, "Our madam was concerned and came to see for herself. If Miss Chen has nothing to hide, I'm sure she won't mind." I clenched my fingers and smiled. "Of course, madam has also prepared a hair sample from Mr. Jiang. Testing both together will be more credible." He was very thorough. I had no objections and handed over the transparent bag. 8. Stepping out of the hospital after the blood draw, I found the snow had stopped and the sky had cleared. The glaring sunlight reflected off a sleek, understated black luxury sedan. A man leaned against the car door, his profile sharp and severe. A cigarette was poised between his slender fingers. He seemed to be waiting for someone, a hint of impatience already visible in his eyes. 3 months had passed, yet he looked exactly the same. I have already accomplished the most important thing in my life. I had intended to slip away without a sound, but in the next instant, the man's eyelids lifted, and his gaze fixed on me. The crowd flowed around him, instinctively parting to form a circle around this aloof and imposing figure. I had no choice but to meet his gaze, offering a polite smile. "Mr. Jiang, what a coincidence." "Not a coincidence," he said, lowering his eyes. His mocking gaze swept over my slightly rounded abdomen. "It seems the last lesson wasn't harsh enough, making you think you could try the same trick again." I tried to explain. "No, you've misunderstood," but he cut me off. "Misunderstood." He repeated the words with a mocking sneer, as if he'd just heard a pathetic joke. "Time, motive, you had both, and you're telling me it was all a misunderstanding." The man flicked away his cigarette butt, his leather shoes clicked against the damp, cold ground as he closed in on me. "Step by step, you leave me for 3 months, and just happen to be 12 weeks pregnant. Tell me, who is this man with such talent? The one who made you dive into a new life so quickly, so eager to have his child?" The words were cutting, the logic sound. For a moment, I was left utterly speechless. "Chen Yang, you've been by my side for 10 years. You should have learned to be smarter than this. Don't resort to such clumsy tricks, and don't force me to burn through the last shred of goodwill between us." The man looked down on me, passing judgment with words as cold and sharp as knives. He was always like this, arrogant, self-assured, measuring everything by his own logic. The arrival of this child had once again stepped on his landmine. The restless sunlight could not melt away even a hint of the chill. I let out a deep sigh. No longer willing to offer futile explanations, I lifted my head and looked at him, for the first time with such calm and earnest focus, no longer addressing him with the polite honorific Mr. Jiang Linchuan. My voice was soft, yet perfectly clear. Do you really believe my life has no other options besides you, finding a suitable partner, getting married, and having a lovely child that was always part of my life plan? And besides, the report isn't even out yet. Why are you condemning me already? My eyes misted over as I asked in a voice that was soft yet unyielding. Why won't you believe me, Jiang Linchuan? He watched me in silence, the chill in his gaze undiminished, until a tear escaped the corner of my eye and fell onto his expensive handmade leather shoes. His long fingers twitched unconsciously at his side, his lips pressed into a thin line as he averted his gaze. Playing the vulnerable card had always worked on him. I know my strengths all too well. He took a silent step back, putting distance between us. A moment later, his gaze turned icy, his voice laced with warning. Chen Yang, you'd better be sure you're telling the truth. Of course, the report will be ready in a week. Mr. Jiang will get a satisfactory answer, I assure you. The man stared at my retreating back, his cold gaze growing inscrutably complex. A satisfactory answer. A strange feeling welled up in his chest. Was it his? Or was it not? An inexplicable restlessness coiled around his heart. It suddenly dawned on him, it seems like no answer would satisfy him. 9. Everyone thinks I'm using my child to climb the social ladder. But the truth is, I don't have much ambition for fame and fortune in my early years. My only thought was probably how to stay by Jiang Linchuan's side for a few more days. People always like to use light as a metaphor for salvation and love. So, in my 20s, I like to think of Jiang Linchuan as my light, the sole salvation in my debauched and decaying life. I even harbored the petty desire to push away every other woman by his side, to become the only one who stayed with him. Perhaps you find me laughable, but you must understand, the year I met him, I had just turned 20. He paid off my father's gambling debts, dealt with the loan sharks who had me living in constant fear, and gave me the chance to continue my university education. I think anyone in that situation would have fallen for him, hopelessly and completely. So after graduation, I stayed by his side willingly. I accompanied him to all sorts of business dinners, shielding him from one strong drink after another. He never really cared for drinking, he'd avoid it at all costs. Except for those unavoidable social occasions, and I'd always drink in his stead. Back then, I always wished I could stay by his side for a few more years, so every time the liquor burned my throat, I'd stay silent and just give him a sweet smile. My cheeks would flush under his approving gaze, and my heart would race at the chance to lean against his shoulder under the guise of a tipsy haze. He was never short of female companions. Some were for social functions, others were arranged by the family. But most never lasted more than 3 months. My ability to hold my liquor was the one skill that kept me by his side. Year after year, the longer I stayed with him, the clearer the gulf between us became. He would never marry me. He used to say this all the time. Eventually, I knew it without him having to say it. If you choose the shortcut, don't complain about the thorns along the path. The class divide is an unbridgeable chasm. I am perfectly aware of that. So, he was never the one I chose to marry. 10. The results came out on a Friday, and I went to the hospital as agreed. Assistant Lin collected the report and escorted me to a nearby restaurant. Caillou had been waiting there for quite some time, her expression remarkably composed. Just as I was about to open the report, Assistant Lin pressed down on my wrist, wearing a smile that was both distant and polite. She said, "Since Miss Chen is so confident about the outcome, perhaps it would be best for our madam to be the one to reveal the results." A faint sense of unease began to stir within me. A smile played at the corner of Chiwa's lips, as if she had seen through everything long ago and was now merely here to collect the answer. After opening the report and giving it a cursory glance, she tossed Jiang Linchuan's copy onto the desk with practiced ease. "Care to explain, Miss Chen? Linchuan despises being lied to more than anything. Especially when it comes to matters concerning a child." My gaze dropped. The bold text on the page stated clearly, "Paternity confirmed with 99% certainty." My heart sank when I saw that absurd conclusion. Assistant Lin tactfully withdrew, leaving the two of us alone. I was stunned for a moment. then picked up the report and read it over several times. Seeing this, Caillou was smug and sneered. "Miss Chen, your silence, are you trying to think up a lie? I can understand your desire to climb into high society, but Lin Chuan and I are about to get married. Who exactly are you trying to disgust by dragging a bastard child into this? I figured it out very quickly. No wonder you were so certain of the outcome, so you had rigged it from the start. Maybe I came across as too docile and younger than her, which made her think I'd be an easy target, but I didn't spend all those years in the nightlife scene for nothing." Later, after attending so many drinking parties with Jiang Linchuan, I'd heard my fair share of the dirty tricks people used to climb the ladder. Every sample from that day passed through her and assistant Lin's hands. Even a fool could tell something was off. I tossed the report in front of her and said with pity, "Caillou, you're truly afraid of me." The smile on her face froze. I leaned closer to her and chuckled with understanding. "You know perfectly well this child isn't Jiang Linchuan's. But you're determined to make it his, aren't you?" Her eyes widened in shock. She was about to retort, but my next words cut her off. "You went to all this trouble just so Jiang Linchuan could see the irrefutable evidence with his own eyes, didn't you? You wanted him to be utterly convinced that I, Chen Yang, am an incorrigible woman trying to trap him with a bastard child, so that whatever shred of lingering affection or guilt he felt for me would turn completely into disgust and rage." Her face instantly turned ashen, her voice rising sharply. "What nonsense are you spouting? What trouble did I go to?" The mocking curve of my lips widened as I continued to expose the thoughts she believed were hidden. "You wanted him to push me away with his own hands, to cut ties for good, because you, more than anyone, understand how much Jiang Linchuan despises illegitimate children and values bloodline. So, you gave him the one reason he could never forgive me." Indeed, her greatest fear wasn't the child, but the uncertain old flame still lingering in Jiang Linchuan's heart. She had to personally snuff out that spark. 10 whole years, that's 5 times longer than the 2 years she spent saving Jiang Linchuan. How could she not be terrified? She shot to her feet, slammed the report onto the table, and said with reckless abandon, "This is the truth now, and I've already sent him the report. Jiang Linchuan will only believe this. You could talk until you're blue in the face, and he'd still think you're lying, that you're deceiving him." I let out a careless laugh, settled onto the sofa, and retorted, "You think you hold a lot of weight in his heart, is that it? That was 10 years. Caillou," I pressed, aiming straight for her sore spot the more frightened she became. 10 years that you can never erase, no matter what you do." Completely provoked, she spat out each word as if grinding it between her teeth. Her voice sharp and emphatic, "Chen Yang, you're the one who isn't loved, understand? So what if it's been 10 years, if I hadn't left? How could someone like you, a woman from the nightclubs, ever have gotten your turn to serve by Lin Chuan's side? Could you even count all the men you've been with? You've been freeloading for a decade on the privileges only a Mrs. Jiang deserves. After pretending to be high class for so long, have you actually forgotten who you really are?" I didn't confirm or deny it, just tilted my head and smiled. "What's the matter, Miss Kai? Jealous?" She let out a cold laugh. "Jealous? Ha, what would I have to be jealous of? He just sees you as a disposable plaything." "Oh, that's right, didn't you get pregnant with Lin Chuan's child back then? Did he want it? And this one now?" Her hand shot out, nearly jabbing my stomach. Her face a mask of pure malice and scorn. "Do you think it will be any different? Let me tell you, even if this really is Lin Chuan's, the child will be born a bastard who can't see the light of day, just like you. They'll spend their whole life being pointed at and cursed behind their back, a little bastard born from trash." My expression finally turned ice cold. I shot to my feet, snatched the coffee at hand, and flung it right in her face. 11. That was the exact moment Jiang Linchuan made his entrance. He walked in and his eyes immediately landed on Caillou, her face splattered with coffee, her whole person a disheveled mess, trembling and weeping. He didn't even need a second to decide. The man's face was calm and cold, but his eyes were dark and sharp. He picked up a full glass of ice water from the table and poured it directly over my head. The whole thing was swift and decisive, without a moment's hesitation. "Had enough fun?" His voice was utterly flat, yet its tone chilled me to the bone. Icy water trickled from my hair down the side of my face and into my collar. The biting cold sent an involuntary shiver through my body. I closed my eyes, and a hazy memory of my first year by his side drifted into my mind. There was a scene like this, too. It was the first time he took me to a business dinner to discuss a partnership. I was so nervous that I accidentally spilled wine on a CEO's shirt cuff while pouring. Then, with utter calm, he stood up and, in front of everyone at the table, poured the entire bottle of wine over my head. He scolded me in the same flat tone. "Cat, got your tongue? Aren't you going to apologize to Mr. Shin?" But it was different from 10 years ago. In that instant, I felt no resentment or bitterness, only a sense of absurdity. It was so absurd it was ironic, so absurd the tears nearly welled up in the corners of my eyes. I fought back the sting in my burning eyes and met his condescending gaze. My voice was hoarse, trembling as I spoke, enunciating each word with deliberate, emotionless clarity. "Jiang Linchuan, I have never done anything to wrong you, not once. For 10 years, I obeyed your every word. You told me to drink in your place, and I drank even to the point of hospitalization from a bleeding ulcer. I never refused. You told me to curry favor with someone, and I went even when they groped me and took every advantage. I never resisted. You told me to abort the child, and I did it even facing the risk of death on the operating table. I didn't hesitate for a second. Haven't I been obedient enough, Jiang Linchuan?" I demanded, my eyes rimmed red. "So why are you treating me like this?" His gaze darkened, and he remained silent. I managed a strained smile as tears welled up and spilled from the corners of my eyes. "I've always been good, haven't I? I never caused you any trouble. When we broke up, I made it clean, no demands for compensation, no leaving the door open to contact you. I even genuinely wished for your happiness." A heavy lump formed in my throat, choking off my words. I simply stared at him with a stubborn, almost desperate intensity, as if pleading for an answer. "But why would you do this to me, Jiang Linchuan? In all these years, I've rarely cried in front of him, very rarely." His dark pupils fixed on me, his Adam's apple bobbing faintly. Scalding tears welled from the corners of my eyes and fell to the ground. It felt like a blow straight to his chest, so searing it made his very heart tremble. His fingers, hanging limply at his sides, unconsciously clenched into fists. Just moments ago, he had lifted the glass of ice water with such ease, yet now his arm felt leaden, as if weighed down by 1,000 pounds, making even the simple act of raising it a struggle. He had weathered countless boardroom battles that decided the fate of the company, yet for the first time, he was at a loss for words. His steely gaze remained fixed on the tracks of my tears, unable to look away. His silence finally shattered the last shred of my sanity. I could no longer contain my crumbling composure. "Why? Just tell me why you have to disrupt my life like this. Why jump to the conclusion that this child must be yours? Why push me into a corner where I can't even prove my own innocence?" He blurted out abruptly. "Because we slept together that night, beside us." Caillou covered her face, her expression one of utter disbelief. She probably never imagined, on the night her flight landed. Yet Jiang Linchuan's body was still entwined with mine. Her face instantly went pale, and she rushed over to demand an explanation from Jiang Linchuan. But Jiang Linchuan shook her off with disgust. 12. I suddenly laughed, tears streaming down my face even as I did. "So that's the only reason, Jiang Linchuan. Is there a day we don't do it? You've barely ever used a condom. We've been like this for years. How could you possibly think that one time would get me pregnant?" His jaw tightened, his gaze turned icy, and he flung the report from his hand. "This is my child." "It is not," I retorted sharply. In the quiet restaurant, we faced each other in a silent standoff. The air was thick with tension. I was the first one to regain my composure. "Jiang Linchuan, didn't the doctor tell you that after losing that baby, it would be very difficult for me to conceive again?" His expression turned icy cold. "But you are undeniably pregnant now. That's because my husband is a doctor." I cut him off, my eyes completely red-rimmed. "Jiang Linchuan, I took the pill every single time, without fail. That time was no exception. You would never allow a bastard child to be born, would you?" "But Jiang Linchuan, what are you doing right now?" Each of these questions struck his reason like a series of heavy blows. "Yeah, what is he doing?" In the coffee shop, amidst the mess, with my hair still dripping wet, I looked at him almost pleadingly and called his name. "Jiang Linchuan, I'm begging you, okay?" He could read every emotion in my eyes, so clearly it made his heart ache. But this plea wasn't a request for him to believe me. I said, "Jiang Linchuan, just let me go." Those words fell upon his ears. His heart felt as if it had been violently wrenched. A sudden, inexplicable ache of bitterness spread from the center of his chest. 12. London winters are truly bitter. The soaked clothes clung to my skin, a chill so deep it felt like my very insides were trembling. I pulled the collar of my expensive black wool coat tighter, failed to stifle a few sneezes, and quickened my pace. I didn't live far from here, and today, as it happened, was the day my husband's flight was due to land. The one who's been gone for nearly half a month is finally coming home. I placed a hand on my lower abdomen and let out a long, deep breath. The baby inside me has been so well behaved. Even when I got so worked up just now, it didn't stir at all. I thought about it and instantly regretted it. I was just too soft-hearted. Even the coffee I threw at Caillou was lukewarm. And I only aimed for her face, but that glass of ice water drenched me from head to toe. This is so unfair. Jiang Linchuan followed a short distance behind me, silent yet persistent. He had offered to drive me, but I turned him down. "You'd be better off checking if the test samples were swapped. This matter was handled by Assistant Lin and Caillou, and I need an explanation too. With his power and wealth, this is no problem at all. I am absolutely certain. This is my husband's and my baby." He didn't say a word, just stared at my pregnant belly. Actually, it's just a slight, barely noticeable curve at the moment, yet it was still unbearably glaring, stirring up a deep-seated sense of intense displeasure and aversion. And this feeling was even more pronounced than when I was pregnant. He had already vaguely anticipated the test results, as I had no reason to lie, but he resisted thinking about or accepting them. The man's gaze fell upon the plain band on my ring finger. He stared for a long, long time, so long that his eyes grew red-rimmed. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse. "You bought the ring yourself, didn't you? It's common abroad for single people to buy and wear rings themselves, just to ward off unwanted advances." His question itself carried the weight of self-deception and a last-ditch effort. The answer was so glaringly obvious, right there in front of us. Yet, he still wanted me to nod in agreement. As if my simple nod could make everything that happened in the last 3 months vanish into thin air, wiped clean from the slate. I would still be that Chen Yang who had walked by his side for a long 10 years. The Chen Yang who would never leave him unless he said the word. Even the child in my womb. You could even think of it as a gift from our last night together, the final time we made love. He thought to himself that he wouldn't mind raising a child born out of wedlock. But I just smiled and said, with near cruelty, "My husband drafted it himself and spent a month designing it. Mr. Jiang, we're so compatible, so deeply in love, and we're about to welcome a baby of our own." That faint, desperate hope was utterly extinguished. He let out a self-mocking laugh, at a loss for words for a moment. As he lowered his head, his eyes inexplicably grew red. Just 3 months. It was only 3 months. Why couldn't fate grant him even a moment to react? 13. 2 lines of footprints trailed through the snow, uneven and stumbling. At my doorstep, I took off my overcoat and threw it into the trash bin, right in front of the man behind me. I'm sure he doesn't need another coat, and it saves us the trouble of having to send it back and forth, rekindling any connection. A coat worth over 10,000, he's thrown one away like that before. That night was a snowy one, just like this, because the client I was with that night was being difficult. I was forced to drink too much. I ended up grabbing him by the lapels of his coat and vomiting all over him. Perhaps because the deal was sealed and he was in high spirits, he simply discarded the soiled, expensive coat and swept me up into his arms without a second thought. I can't remember if I was truly drunk that night or not. All I remember is the full moon, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and the snowflakes catching on his long, delicate eyelashes, a sight so captivating I couldn't look away. The snow that night was bitterly cold. Drowsily, I nuzzled against his warm chest, wishing with a greedy heart that this road could stretch on a little longer. Yet, deep down, I was acutely aware, the warmth of winter is indeed something to yearn for, but you cannot let that yearning trap you in the entire season. Just as I was about to leave, the man behind me suddenly called out. His eyes were silently rimmed with red. His voice hoarse and strained when he spoke, his expression distant. What if I had been willing to keep the child back then? I cut him off. I wasn't. I spoke slowly and deliberately, each word measured. Jiang Linchuan, I will only have a proper family. I will raise a child that belongs to me and the person I love, not some illegitimate child who is looked down upon and can never be acknowledged. I never once thought that child could stay, not for a single moment. His heart felt as if it had been pierced, a raw, bleeding pain that radiated through every limb and bone. Tears suddenly fell from his stinging eyes. He used to feel nothing for that child, so why does just the thought of it now leave him breathless and heartbroken? 14. Later, the report results came in. The child I'm carrying is absolutely, without a doubt, not his. Caillou never showed up again after that night. I knew the system had judged her mission, this long-awaited reunion, a failure and sent her back to her original world. After experiencing such a whirlwind of extravagance and splendor, how could she possibly resign herself to a mediocre, unfaithful husband and a life of utter destitution? The immense psychological torment kept her perpetually on the brink of a breakdown. Assistant Lin, who had taken the bribe, was promptly fired, and from then on, no company dared to hire him. Even after all these years by Jiang Linchuan's side, he never showed an ounce of mercy. He has always been that cold and heartless. At the tail end of winter, Jiang Linchuan came to see me for the last time. He chose the same restaurant as last time. Just as he was about to pour me a drink, I raised my hand to stop him. It's fruit wine, very low in alcohol. It won't affect the baby, he said, his eyes fixed on me, his voice inexplicably thick with emotion. I pressed my lips together and gave a faint smile, telling him with unprecedented honesty, Mr. Jiang, I don't like to drink, I never have. Life forced me onto that path of being a hostess. He was stunned, silent for a long moment, as if finally processing this truth. Even after walking side by side for 10 years, little did he know, I was just like him. I never really liked drinking. After dinner, he insisted on walking me home, just as I was about to step inside. He called out to me in the swirling snow, Chen Yang, did you ever love me? A man who was once so proud and noble had actually stooped to asking such a cliched question. Through the howling wind and drifting snow, I turned and looked at him. I blinked hard. I know he's mean, cold, and selfish. Yet I can't deny that he's been a part of every major change in my life, from a hostess with only a high school diploma to a university graduate from a prestigious school. From a damp basement to a bright, spacious Riverview apartment, I grew from timid and insecure to brave and gentle. I transformed from a girl into a woman. I came to Kyoto alone, and had to tough everything out by myself. Later, his simple, offhand "what's wrong?" was all it took to smooth over any trouble for me. The name Jiang Linchuan was etched into my very bones. Long, long ago, he changed my life, pulling me from the mire and showing me a wider world. He also gave me a sense of invincibility. I knew that merely uttering his name would shield me from any bully, yet, he also taught me my most painful lesson, that a love like a moth to a flame is doomed from the start. At 20, I clichédly likened him to the light that saved me. Now, at 30, standing here, I would still say the same. Jiang Linchuan was the beam of light that changed my life, but I know better now that light was never meant to be my home. So, when his first love returned, I stepped aside without a second thought. I hoped the light that pulled me from the mire could also embrace the one he had waited for all these years, even though it all fell apart in the end. But that wasn't my fault. That's when I felt the velvet box in my pocket. I had no idea when he'd slipped it in there. I didn't even look at it, I just threw it, box and all, into the snow at his feet. At this point, whether there is love or not is a meaningless question. I am no longer the girl who needs to cling to someone else's light to survive. Warm light is glowing in the room, my husband is cooking for me. I walk step by step towards my spring. End of main text, extra chapter, Jiang Linchuan's perspective. 1. I first met Chen Yang in a glitzy, neon-lit nightclub. I never liked discussing business in places like that, far too loud and headache-inducing. But since our partner had extended such a warm invitation, it would have been rude to turn them down. She couldn't have been more than 20 that year. Yet she was already a seasoned veteran of the nightlife scene, dressed in the most revealing dress, with exquisite makeup. She effortlessly charmed the guests. Her face was stunningly beautiful, yet her eyes were a pair of soft, almond-shaped ones, and dimples would appear when she smiled. That was the first time in years I had thought of Caillou, two people worlds apart. Yet, in that moment she poured the wine, I saw a resemblance. She could really hold her liquor, and with her soft, sweet voice. She had the executives in stitches. Even in this high-end club, teeming with beautiful women, she still stood out, radiant and captivating. So I remembered her, too. My company was going through a transition at the time, and there were endless rounds of business dinners every day. I enjoy appreciating fine wine, but I detest the pointless, mechanical act of guzzling it down like water. Most of the women around me couldn't hold their liquor, so she was the natural choice, 30,000 a pop. Just to drink on my behalf. That was way more than she made at the club, so she put in the work. At the table, no matter the drink, she'd pick it up and knock it back without a second thought. Other women might stumble around or even lean into me when they're drunk, but she just sits beside me, her cheeks flushed and her eyes sparkling. She doesn't touch me, well behaved. The conversation at the table is dull, so her mind often wanders as she stares blankly at her drink, but if someone teases her, she'll offer a gentle, shy smile, not entirely dull. So, at every gathering, she's the first one who comes to mind. As time went on, she stayed by my side, with just the faintest hint of a frown from me. She could read my thoughts. Whenever I grew weary of the conversation, my patience wearing thin, yet found it awkward to simply excuse myself, she would then wrap an arm around my neck and, understanding perfectly, would playfully make a fuss, insisting we leave. She really was just my type, so I was more than willing to help her out with a few troubles, including loan-sharking thugs, troublesome patrons at the nightclub, and the damp, cramped basement. Later, in her drunken state, she told me I was her light and salvation. I found it amusing. Redemption should be a willing act, free of any ulterior motives, not like a self-serving merchant like me. 3. I've always had many female companions by my side. Some were for business collaborations, others were introductions arranged by the family. But most of them didn't last more than 3 months. Even I find it strange that I've allowed her to stay by my side for this long. Of course, along with that came a lot of disapproving looks directed her way. After leaving the nightlife scene, she would occasionally take on minor web series roles to earn some pocket money. When I returned from my business trip in Europe, she was once again covered in bruises. I heard the wire rig malfunctioned just as it was her turn. I scoffed lightly. To be set up so many times in a single month, both openly and behind the scenes, she's quite the stoic one, coming to attend to me despite her injuries. She kept biting her lip, stifling any moans. I lost interest after just a short while. I lit a cigarette instead and told her to accompany me to a dinner party tomorrow. She had only ever accompanied me to drinking parties, so those people naturally saw her as a plaything at their beck and call. It wasn't until she entered that exclusive, high society dinner on my arm as my date that their unsavory intentions gradually subsided. After dealing with those who had tried to trip her up, I told her offhandedly, with my name backing you, you can afford to be a bit bolder, otherwise, it's my reputation on the line. She wrapped her arms around me and agreed, her cheeks flushed as she leaned in to kiss me. I don't mind kissing, on the rare occasions when she was sick and feeling miserable. I was even willing to hold her in my arms and give her a kiss. It started with tentative, fleeting pecks, but I soon grew to prefer deep, consuming kisses. I'd steal her last breath, watching tears well in her almond-shaped eyes and a flush of crimson tremble across her cheeks. Left with no choice but to cling to my neck, she'd whimper her pleas with the most vulnerable, pleading look. 4. I had taken it for granted that she belonged in my territory, that she was mine, so when I first saw her kissing the male lead in that low-budget web series, a subtle sense of displeasure welled up inside me. I was reluctant to admit that what I felt was jealousy. I just can't stand it, the thought of my things carrying someone else's scent. In my view, possessiveness is an instinct hardwired into the male psyche, not an expression of affection. She probably sensed I was upset, so she never took on any intimate scenes after that. She was always very good about that. She was obedient and well-behaved from start to finish. The only time she ever defied me was over that one thing, the child she unexpectedly conceived and intended to keep. It never even crossed my mind that she could be so bold. So I threw her out into the snow to reflect, telling her to come back in only when she had thought it through. I hadn't shut the villa door properly that night, but she stubbornly endured the whole night out there. I thought she was going to stand her ground against me, but the next day, with her eyes red and puffy, She unexpectedly backed down. All my friends at the time were trying to talk me out of it, saying, "It's just a kid, is it really worth making such a big fuss?" There's no shortage of shady dealings in our circle, even a few of the most prominent figures have illegitimate children stashed away overseas. I just find it troublesome and unnecessary. Back then, I fought for years with my father's illegitimate children to secure my rightful inheritance. I despise their status. So I would never allow myself to have a child like that. Someone teased, "Why don't you just marry Chen Yang? Then, that way, it wouldn't be an illegitimate child. She's been with you for 6 years, the first woman to last this long with you. Linchuan, can you honestly say you don't feel anything for her?" I didn't say a word, but inwardly, I found it amusing. It was just a matter of keeping her around a couple more years because she was pleasant to look at. Yet, the passage of time became their yardstick for measuring whether I had developed feelings. So, in the 7th year, I decided to part ways with her. 5. My family has selected a suitable marriage prospect for me. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, I will walk down the aisle with someone from a compatible social standing who can be an asset to me. But on the eve of the wedding, the wealthy heiress ran away. To pursue my own love, I found it absurd. Yet I felt a sense of relief. I never give a woman a second chance to get close to me, but I gave Chen Yang two. The first time was when she had just had the abortion, lying pale on the hospital bed. Yet she managed to force a smile in my direction. At that moment, I thought she had learned her lesson, and I could reluctantly bring myself to forgive her. So, I allowed her to stay by my side for 1 more year. The second time is now. During the 6 months we were out of touch, I spent 3 of them planning a wedding, and the other 3 thinking of her for no reason at all, but I absolutely refused to reach out to her. Then, I unexpectedly saw her in a restaurant. She was on a date with a man. Her eyes crinkling into a smile as she shared her hopes for the future. I stole a couple of glances without making a move. For several nights after, lying in bed, I kept thinking of her dazzlingly bright smile. A heavy, stifling feeling sat in my chest for days. I've never been one to be excessively hard on myself. Confronting desire head-on was the first lesson I learned in the world of business, so I had my assistant call her and ask her to come over. She rarely comes to my place. After a passionate encounter, I came out of the shower to find her applying her own body lotion. The rich scent of roses filled my otherwise quiet, lonely bedroom. I lit a cigarette and leaned lazily against the balcony railing, watching her. Her hair was silky, her skin fair, her waist slender, a vision of delicate beauty. Around her neck was the necklace I had picked out for her, and she wore a bathrobe that matched mine. This was the rose I had cultivated with my own hands. A secret sense of possession began to grow in my chest. I finally admitted it to myself. I was jealous. She could only be mine. Just as she was about to put the item back in her bag, I stubbed out my cigarette, walked over, wrapped my arm around her, and kissed her, murmuring casually, "Just leave it there." For the first time, her collection of bottles and jars found a real place on my darkwood table. After 7 years, it was the first time I had tacitly allowed her into my life. 6. After that, we tacitly began the next year together. There were no other women around me anymore. She was the only one by my side. Even my usually carefree friends couldn't help but tease me, asking when they'd get to toast at my wedding. I let out a cold, dismissive laugh and ignored them. "I can keep supporting him, but I won't marry her." I said it. I'm a businessman, and profit comes first. If there was ever a moment I seriously considered it, it must have been the Mid-Autumn Festival of some year. At exactly midnight, I reached out and found the other side of the bed empty. I got up and searched around, only to find her in the living room downstairs, nibbling on a piece of bread. She seemed a little embarrassed at being caught, and asked if I wanted some too. It's hard to describe how I felt at that moment. It was a mix of amusement and helplessness, and the usual mask of icy indifference I wore seemed to thaw a little. I walked into the kitchen and cooked her some pasta. The last time I cooked was back when I was studying abroad. Even after all this time, my hands felt a bit rusty, but I was pleased with the final result. The living room was spacious and quiet, a stark contrast to the bustling traffic outside. The soft glow of the wall lamp fell upon her hair, tracing the line of her long, pale neck and hinting at the faint love bite on her chest. Suddenly, fireworks erupted outside. She looked up, her eyes smiling, and said to me, "Happy Mid-Autumn Festival, Mr." Jiang, it was at this very moment, the thought suddenly struck me that maybe this wouldn't be such a bad way to live. 7. Yet, our relationship never progressed beyond its 10th year. A girl who was nearly fading from my memory has returned. Everyone says she was my first love, my purest memory. I don't deny it. During the 2 loneliest years of high school, it was she who stayed by my side, giving me the strength to carry on. The night I saw Chen Yang off was the very same night Caillou's flight touched down. That's when it hit me. She had been by my side for 10 years. Whatever she asked for, I knew I would have agreed, yet she managed a faint smile. Even as tears kept falling, her heart clearly breaking, she told me, I don't want anything. I only wish for Mr. Jiang to find genuine, lasting happiness. If I'd heard such a foolish story at a drinking party, I would have scoffed and made a few mocking remarks. When a kept lover suddenly loses all desire for gain right when they could cash in big, it's either a facade of virtue or a play for an even bigger prize. But in that instant, I felt an inexplicable emotion welling up in my chest, sharp and clear. After seeing Chen Yang off, Caillou naturally slipped into the space by my side. She often brings up high school when we talk. Come to think of it, we only really knew each other for about 2 years, but she always has so many little stories and details. To be honest, my memory of that time is a bit hazy now. I just remember that I had feelings for her. After she left, I might have been heartbroken back then, but now, looking at her, I feel nothing at all, because I had promised her long ago that I would celebrate her birthday. So I went to the kitchen and made her some noodles. She hovered around me and asked in a coquettish tone, "Am I the first person to taste the noodles you've made?" I don't understand why women always fixate on firsts like this. Just as I don't know what kind of thinly-veiled answer the person asking this question wants to hear. Am I the first person to ever shave you? Am I the first person you've ever let into your bedroom? Am I the first person to ever sit in your passenger seat? No, actually. All those firsts belong to someone else. She asks too many questions. It's really annoying. It's been over 10 years. Caillou, I reminded her, keeping my tone neutral. She blinked, her eyes growing slightly red, and said in a light tone, "I know, so much time has passed, hasn't it? I have already journeyed 1/3 of the way down life's road, and I've spent a long 10 years with another woman. How could I possibly remember only those 2 years in high school, when I was young? I promised I would marry her, but now, I'm not so sure." 8. I think of Chen Yang from time to time. She's all alone abroad and doesn't know how to cook. I wonder if she'll be able to settle in. But I did leave her a substantial amount of money. That should be enough for her to hire a cook. I don't know why I keep thinking about her so often. I blame it on habit. It's just a normal withdrawal symptom. I absolutely will not reach out to her, because I don't give a woman a third chance to get close to me. She's been with me for 10 years, which is long enough. 3 months later, I boarded a flight to London for a business collaboration. I had considered the possibility of running into her, but I had no real intention of seeking her out. Until I stood behind the floor-to-ceiling window, my gaze drifting downward. I saw her emerge from the hospital, a slight swell to her belly, leafing through her prenatal checkup report. In that instant, a bitter laugh escaped me. 10 years. And I still haven't made her fully understand my rules. Using a child is always the most foolish and greedy tactic. Perhaps the lesson from back then wasn't harsh enough. That's why she thought she could try the same trick again. With a sneer on my face, I tossed a card to Assistant Lin and told him to pass on a message. "You handle all contact with her. Don't give her any of my contact information. If she asks, just tell her I'm getting married." I wanted to use the excuse of marriage to sever any lingering thoughts she might have. I didn't want to give her any chance to reach out to me again or mistakenly believe there was still an opportunity for us to reconcile. I've never been one to show mercy when it comes to severing ties with the past. I stood by the window, watching London's first snowfall of the year, and watching her reaction, yet her face remained perfectly calm throughout, showing neither panic nor pallor. This was not something I had anticipated. She should have shown at least a flicker of panic. After all, she knows better than anyone what I cannot abide. This time, no matter how much she dwells on the child she aborted back then, no matter how she pleads with me, I will not relent. The tragic outcome of that incident was never my intention. Rules are rules, she broke them, so she must face the consequences, and this time is no different. 9. Assistant Lin brought back a reply for me. She said it was her child, hers and her husband's. Husband. That word was like a tiny splinter, piercing my eardrum. I find it laughable. She's getting better and better at spinning lies. That vague restlessness in my heart turned into something much heavier. I ran into her at the hospital later. I couldn't help but sneer, yet she remained gentle and composed, looking at me with those misty eyes, asking, "Jiang Linchuan, why don't you believe me? Should I believe her?" But I don't deny it. I gave in the moment I saw her tears. I could wait for the test results to come back, then nail her to the wall with them, leaving her no room for excuses, because I was absolutely certain the child was mine. The last time we had sex that night, I didn't use a condom. Exhausted, she slept in past 10. After meeting with Kai Yu, she rushed off to catch her flight. Judging by both the timing and the circumstances, it was only natural for me to assume the child was mine. So when Kai Yu sent me that paternity report, the anger I'd been suppressing finally found a more direct target. Let's see what kind of excuse she can come up with now. I used ice water to cool her down. I never go easy on those who don't listen. But when she looked up, tears mingling with the icy water, and fixed me with that shattered yet defiant gaze, when she recounted every single past grievance, her eyes rimmed red, demanding to know why I would treat her this way, my fingertips, pressed against the side of the cup, had gone slightly numb, because every single word she uttered left me with no room for argument. All these years by my side, she had been so well behaved, so obedient, giving no cause for complaint. The only time she ever stepped out of line was when she secretly got pregnant. The tremor in her voice snapped me back to my senses. A strange, almost guilty feeling flashed through me. She asked me, "This whole thing could have been settled with a simple evaluation report. Why did you have to push her into a corner where she can't even defend herself?" My gaze fell on her soaked hair and pale face, and it felt like 1,000 tiny needles were piercing my chest, making it hard to breathe. I rarely give people a second chance, but I'm always making an exception for her. 10. I switched assistants and had him bring me the second paternity test report. He said in a tone of relief and delight, "Mr. Jiang, the child isn't yours." He waited for my reply, but all he saw was my stunned, motionless figure. He tentatively placed the report in my hands. Outside the window was London's grey, overcast sky. I stared at those bold words over and over, my knuckles turning white from gripping the report so tightly. It wasn't mine. The realization felt like a chill in the air. An absolute, icy silence closed in on me from all sides. So, she was gone for 3 months, got married in a hurry, and is now carrying another man's child. An indescribable taste spread through my mouth, bitter, absurd, and laced with a sharp, stinging pain. So, she really could turn away just like that, to walk into a life without me, even to bring forth a new life that has nothing to do with me. Then what do my anger, my suspicion, and all that inexplicable restlessness and loss of control over these past few days even amount to? A complete and utter, one-sided farce. I suddenly remembered the child I had once asked to abort, that was my own child. A sudden, heavy, sharp pang of pain shot through my chest. My hand holding the cigarette trembled slightly. I've always considered myself a very calm person, and I began to sort through my thoughts from that moment. Why didn't I take it back then? Was it too much trouble? Was it against the rules? Was it because you thought she wasn't qualified? Or were you so certain that you'd only ever have a legitimate heir in the future? I was already making waves in the business world by the age of 20, and I've rarely made a wrong call, but in this matter, I actually felt a pang of regret. All my thoughts were thrown into disarray by the report in front of me. She was already carrying another man's child. She was so fiercely protective of another man's child. The stark contrast, the sheer disparity, it left a lump in my throat, choking me. It finally dawned on me. I think I've lost her. It wasn't 3 months ago, when she left me and flew to a foreign land. It was at some earlier moment, when I ordered her to get an abortion. 11, under the pretext of an apology, we met for the last time. I chose that restaurant where the unpleasantness had occurred, deliberately picking a table by the window. Outside the window was London's typical overcast sky, a dull, oppressive grey that felt suffocating. Her pregnancy was evident. And she looked radiant. She gently stopped my hand as I tried to pour her a drink. "It's just fruit wine, very low in alcohol." I tried to sound casual, as if offering an explanation. or perhaps making a feeble justification for those past 10 years. But she simply told me she didn't like to drink. That was an answer I never expected. My voice was hoarse as I wanted to ask her why she hadn't told me sooner. But then I remembered, it was by sharing these drinks, one after another, that she stayed by my side, and these were never choices she was allowed to make. While she was in the restroom, I slipped the ring I'd bought at auction for a small fortune into her coat pocket. I figured it was the least I could do for her. I barely tasted a thing during that meal. When it was over, I insisted on walking her home. The snow began to fall again, not heavily, but in a fine, dense mist that dampened our shoulders. We walked in silence along the same path I had once followed her. This time, I knew, it was the end of our 10 years. That question, the one that had lingered in my heart for so long, the one I thought I would never dare ask, so cliched and yet so devastating, finally escaped my lips. Chen Yang, did you ever love me? The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. This isn't like me, it's so pathetic, so humiliating. Yet I couldn't tear my eyes away from her, my heart hanging in the air. She didn't answer right away. And the brief silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. I watched, helpless, as she fished the velvet box from her pocket. Without even a glance, she tossed it back without hesitation, right into the snow at my feet, clean, decisive, without a trace of lingering attachment. The answer is self-evident. I never understood why people would use something as cliché as a red rose to describe an unrequited love. It wasn't until I stood on that snow-covered street, watching a man buy the red roses, my eyes stung, my knuckles white. I hurled the ring box with all my strength. I thought to myself, I would probably never have a child in this lifetime. The end. Story 2. The most regretful thing I've ever done in my life was pushing Jiang Huaishu away during the car accident and putting myself in front of the danger. As a result, I lost one of my legs and became a disabled person in the eyes of others. Then, his white moonlight came back. And he said he was going to marry her. He said that she was pregnant, and the young mistress of the Jiang family couldn't be a disabled person. Feeling disheartened, I turned around and left. In the end, he said he regretted it, but I couldn't remember him anymore. He could only watch helplessly as I fell in love with someone else. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My name is Ruan Junjun. When I fell in love with Jiang Huaishu, he was still an unknown wage earner. For his sake, I quit my stable and high-paying job and accompanied him to start a business. During those days, we slept in a dark and damp basement together and ate boxed lunches that cost only 7 yuan each. In short, we endured all the hardships one could imagine. Hard work pays off. 4 years later, he succeeded. Overnight, Jiang Huaishu became a new upstart in Li City. And there were a continuous stream of people coming to curry favor with him. Jiang Huaishu was a rising star in Li City. He had a quick mind, ruthless methods, and was resolute and uncompromising in his work. So, although his company grew rapidly, he also made many enemies and suffered a lot both openly and secretly. That car accident happened in such a context. Lying in the hospital bed, I stared blankly with my eyes wide open, looking at the remaining half of my right leg with a vacant gaze. And tears kept welling up. With red eyes and trembling hands, he held mine and said, "In this life, I, Jiang Huaishu, will marry no one but you." I believed him. I thought that after going through hardships, there would always be sweetness. But it seemed that fate always wanted to make me unhappy. In the autumn of the second year after my car accident, his white moonlight came back. I heard from my friends around me, who mentioned it to me carefully, that she was the girl he had been in love with for 7 years, so he had a white moonlight that he had liked for so long. During all those years we were together, I had never heard him mention her. Unable to resist my curiosity, I asked people around me who were familiar with Jiang Huaishu about her. The girl's name was Xia Wn, and she was a master's graduate who had returned from overseas. She had a willful and eccentric personality, was free and unrestrained, and not bound by conventions, which was completely different from my personality. The two of them started dating in college and had been on and off for a long time. Don't worry, Sister Junjun, you risked your life to save Brother Jiang, and we've all seen it. Brother Jiang is probably just feeling some lingering regret, just like before. It's just a casual affair. His brother Du and you comforted me. Yes, it seemed that everyone knew that he would marry me and had to marry me. After all, I had lost a leg for him. There had been many women around Jiang Huaishu in recent years, but he had always been just playing around, so I had always scoffed at the gossip news about him reported by the media, but recently, his name and Xia Wan's name always appeared together. The president of Jiang Group had a secret rendezvous with a mysterious woman in the middle of the night. Jiang Huaishu accompanied a woman to the shopping mall. Similar headlines appeared in various entertainment sections, and for a while, Jiang Huaishu became the topic of people's conversations during meals and leisure time. Junjun, the flies are already bothering you so much, you can't just pretend not to see it anymore, my good friend Chichi reminded me. That day, I finally couldn't help but go to the company to ask him, Junjun, can you not be so sensitive? She is our company's current cooperation partner. You know that the general environment has been bad in recent years, and the company's development has also been very difficult. Jiang Huaishu looked at me with an embarrassing expression, as if I was a person who was being unreasonable. So, the company can't do without her, right? There are so many cooperation partners in Lee City, but it has to be her, right? I couldn't hold back my emotions and sneered, can you stop being unreasonable? I'm already very tired when I come back from work every day, Jiang Huaishu said irritably, tugging at his tie and frowning at me. Also, since your leg makes it inconvenient for you to move around, you should come to the company less often in the future. He didn't even look at me and turned away. Yes. Because of this leg, I had been taunted many times, either intentionally or unintentionally, by the employees in the company at the beginning, when Jiang Huaishu found out. He was very angry and directly fired those who had been gossiping. No one in the whole company dared to speak ill of me anymore. Thinking of this, I naively thought that Jiang Huaishu still loved me. This quarrel ended in our mutual silence, and neither of us brought it up again. In the half-month that followed, he came home later and later. In the first few times, he would call me and say that he had social engagements. After that, he didn't even bother to call me. The power of the white moonlight was indeed extraordinary. There was still a lot of gossip news about him, and the object was always Xia Wan, and between us, it became quieter and quieter. I stopped asking, and he stopped explaining, until one day, I received a call from his good brother, Duan Yu. Sister Junjun, come to Zuchunxiao, brother Jiang is drunk, he said. Okay, send me the location. Even though we were still in a Cold War, I couldn't just leave him alone. When I arrived at Zuchunxiao, I found that Duan Yu had already dragged the drunk Jiang Huaishu to stand outside the door. Later, I found out that Xia Wan was in that private room, and he got so drunk because he was trying to drink on her behalf. Due to years of socializing outside, Jiang Huaishu's stomach had already been severely damaged. After we got back, I put him on the bed and, as I used to do, was about to get up to cook some hangover soup, but he suddenly got up and hugged me, becoming extremely clingy. Be good. I'll go and cook you some hangover soup, I coaxed him helplessly. No, don't leave me. Wanwan. He was talking about Xia Wan. I couldn't hear clearly what he said next. I was still tightly hugged by him, stunned, and my body was stiff. Suddenly, I felt so ridiculous. That night, I was like crazy, searching for information about Xia Wan on Weibo. I quickly found her account. I clicked in and immediately saw the Weibo post that she had pinned. The caption was "Fortunately, we haven't changed." Attached to it was a photo of two hands tightly holding each other's fingers. The mole on the man's right thumb stabbed my eyes painfully. Even more painful than that was the remaining half of my right leg. It was her and Jiang Huaishu. My face was covered with tears, and I was so full of grievances with nowhere to vent. I grabbed my own hand and bit it hard. By the time I had cried enough, it was already dawn. The next morning, I cooked breakfast for him as usual. He didn't remember what had happened last night, and I didn't question him or make a scene. I was foolishly thinking that at least let's get through the spring festival. After the spring festival, I would break up with him. I was so humble as to cling to the remaining time. There was still a week until the new year. I made an appointment with my good friend Chichi to go shopping together and buy some New Year's goods by the way. Although the housekeeper was in charge of preparing these New Year's goods, this time I wanted to have a good New Year. Unexpectedly, what greeted me was a kidnapping case. What do you want? I was controlled by them and stuffed into a car. My head was covered. and my body was shaking uncontrollably. Miss Won, don't be afraid. We've heard that you have a very good relationship with President Jiang. As long as President Jiang withdraws the lawsuit against us and brings 5 million yuan along, we'll release you. After all, it's the new year, and none of us wants to see blood, right? One of them said as he gestured with a knife in front of my face. It was another enemy of Jiang Huaishu, that damned guy. They quickly informed Jiang Huaishu and warned him not to call the police. I was also taken to an abandoned building and roughly tied to a chair. There was no support behind me, and if I wasn't careful, I would fall from this tall building. The winter in Lee City was damp and cold, and I was almost frozen to the point of losing consciousness. Soon, I heard some movement in front of me. A group of big men were dragging someone towards my direction. When the mask was removed, it wasn't Jiang Huaishu who came into my sight, it was Xia Wn. Was she also kidnapped? Although I had never met her face to face, I recognized her at a glance. I had thought of many ways to meet Xia Wn, such as in Jiang Huaishu's company, in a coffee shop on the street, in a bustling shopping mall, or even in Jiang Huaishu's bed. Unexpectedly, we met in this way in the end. She was tied to a chair just like me. I looked at her carefully. Her eyebrows and eyes were cold and delicate. She had a small face. Her eyes were like a galaxy. Her loose hair was black and straight, and the stray hairs stuck to her face, making her skin look even whiter. Between her eyebrows and eyes, she seemed to look a bit like me. She was also looking at me, with a faint smile on her lips. "Hi, Miss Won," she said. What kind of situation was this? She still had the mood to greet me. It seemed that she wasn't nervous at all. Seeing that I didn't answer, as if she could see my doubts, she continued to say calmly, "Let's make a bet." "What's the bet?" I began to be curious about what she was up to. "Bet that he will choose me." About half an hour later, I saw Jiang Huaishu being brought in by them. "I've brought the money, and I've also withdrawn the lawsuit. Let them go." Jiang Huaishu threw the things on the ground, his voice hoarse and slightly decadent. After one of the kidnappers sent his subordinate to check and confirm that there was no problem, he pointed at me and Xia Wn and said, "Ha ha ha, as expected of President Jiang, so straightforward. Then, you can choose one of these two beautiful ladies. Choose one." I looked at Xia Wn. Only then did I understand what she meant by bet that he will choose me. So she knew everything. "What do you mean?" "We had a deal. I gave the money, and you release the people." Jiang Huaishu's eyes were cold, and his voice was filled with suppressed anger. "Don't you understand, President Jiang, in everything, there is always a need for trade-offs. You can't have both of these two beauties. It's not that easy, unless you hand over the position of the president of Jiang Group." The kidnapper bargained with Jiang Huaishu and pointed the gun in his hand at us. 5, 4, 3, 2, a shoe, save me. I heard Xia Wan's terrified cries in my ears. At the last second, "I choose her." Jiang Huaishu lowered his head, and his hand that was clenched into a fist slowly raised and pointed at Xia Wn. I raised my eyes in disbelief, forgetting to struggle, and stood there stunned. From beginning to end, he didn't even look at me once. Was he afraid to, or did he disdain to? It seems that President Jiang can always surprise people. Ha ha ha, okay, let Miss Xia go. After Xia Wn was untied, she threw herself into Jiang Huaishu's arms, hugged him tightly, and sobbed, "A shoe, I'm scared. I'm afraid I'll never see you again." I instinctively looked at her expression. She was being held, her hand around his neck, but her pair of dark eyes were looking straight at me, as if proudly declaring her sovereignty. What a touching scene. I was just abandoned like this. At this moment, it was as if an invisible big hand was wantonly squeezing my heart, making me feel so painful that I couldn't breathe. "You said you would marry no one but me." After saying this, tears rolled down from the corners of my eyes, blurring my vision. I wasn't willing to give up, and I was even more unwilling to accept this. "Sorry, Zhenzhen." Xia Wn. She's pregnant. The wife of the Jiang family can't be a disabled person. She was pregnant. And the wife of the Jiang family couldn't be a disabled person. At that moment, I felt as if I had been completely drenched in ice water from head to toe, and my heart was completely cold. "Don't you know best how I became like this?" Suddenly, the commotion downstairs interrupted my questioning. One of the kidnapper's subordinates reported that the police were coming. I, who was still in despair, seemed to see hope again. In this day and age, Relying on men is useless, in the end. You still have to rely on yourself. Damn it, you actually called the police. It seems that none of you can leave today. Hearing the sound of the police car arriving, these desperate kidnappers viciously pointed their guns at us. Suddenly, the whole building was in chaos. I didn't know where I got the strength from, and I struggled to get up and hit the kidnapper who was controlling me. But the gap in strength between men and women was too great. I was thrown hard to the ground by them. And the pain made my whole body tremble. Cold sweat dripped down from my forehead. You bitch, since you want to die, I'll grant your wish. As he said this, he directly kicked me in the stomach. I didn't know whether I should praise myself for the remarkable effect of my weight loss in recent years or consider myself extremely unlucky. With that kick, he directly kicked me off the 5th floor. At that moment, I heard Jiang Huaishu shouting my name heart-rendingly. That scumbag. Who was he pretending for? In the moment of falling, I felt that time and everything around me was slowed down. The time I spent with Jiang Huaishu flashed through my mind like a movie, and finally became more and more blurred. The next second, I fell heavily to the ground. It was so tragic. I didn't die immediately. The pain of being smashed to pieces spread throughout my body, and blood flowed out continuously, spreading into a river on the asphalt ground. The pungent smell of blood filled the air, but I couldn't move or shout. I could only silently endure this pain. This heart-rending pain made me forget the grief I had just felt. It turned out that getting injured could really relieve the pain in my heart. I felt my heart gradually becoming numb and cold, until there was no warmth left at all. Wan Junjun, are you really going to die like this? For a scumbag man, you lost a leg and now you're even sacrificing your life. Who was scolding me? It was so piercing and vicious, but the voice was so familiar. When I opened my eyes, the beeping sound of the medical equipment was in my ears. Enduring the pain all over my body, I propped myself up on my arms and lifted my body from the hospital bed. There was no one in the whole ward. What had happened? Why was I here? For a moment, I didn't even know whether I was in the underworld or still alive. You little rascal, you're finally awake. The door of the ward was pushed open, and a man walked in holding a bouquet of flowers, which were my favorite sunflowers. Are you, Brother Xiao Duo? I couldn't recognize him for a moment. What, after being apart for these few years, you ungrateful girl have forgotten me already? He put the flowers into the vase by the window and looked at me, pretending to be angry, with such a sharp tongue. It must be him. I don't have many relatives in this world. Since I can remember, I have been living in an orphanage. Xiao Duo is the brother I stubbornly and forcefully recognized in the orphanage, because he was the most powerful child in fights at that time, and by following him, I wouldn't be bullied. Later, he was taken away by a wealthy couple, and there has been no news of him since then. I only remember that I cried terribly that day. I didn't know if it was because I was sad about losing a brother or worried that no one would protect me anymore. How did you? Before I could finish my question, he directly thrust the badge on his chest in front of my eyes. TSK TSK TSK, you fell from upstairs and must have knocked your head silly. I'm your attending doctor, Wan Junjun. I saved your life. So, from now on, without my permission, don't harm yourself again. Xiao Duo gently held my hand and said to me seriously, what do you mean by harming myself? Brother Xiao Duo, how on earth did I end up like this? I tried my best to recall, but to no avail. Images of a man and a woman kept playing in my mind, but I couldn't see their faces clearly. I wasn't really feeling sad, yet my pale face was already covered with tears. Finally, I couldn't bear it anymore and fainted. Junjun. After a series of examinations, the doctor finally determined that I had lost my memory. The reason was that my brain had suffered a severe blow when I fell downstairs. It's so melodramatic, but Junjun still remembers me. Xiao Duo said anxiously beside the doctor. Dr. Xiao, are you also confused by worry? There is a type of amnesia in medicine called selective forgetting. Maybe Miss Wan deep down in her heart wants to forget or avoid thinking about certain things or a certain person, and then she will really forget. However, if the forgotten content has no impact on the person's life, this state can be maintained. The doctor added, it was all for nothing. Don't be afraid, Junjun. Xiao Duo held my hand, trying to ease my nervousness. Yes, what can be forgotten is not important. In the following week, I stayed in the ward to recuperate, falling from the 5th floor. My hands and feet were all broken, And my brain was also injured. I needed to take good care of myself, since I woke up. I have rarely spoken. Every day, I just sat there blankly, not knowing what to do. Xiao Juo was afraid that I would get sick from being cooped up, so every time he got off work, he would chatter non-stop by my bedside. But he was so noisy that I wished I could slap him to death. Just as I couldn't hold back and was about to speak, the door of the ward was pushed open violently. A man walked in. His eyes were bloodshot. His beard seemed to have not been shaved for a long time. And his suit was in a mess. Junjun, I finally found you. I finally found you. He grabbed my shoulders tightly, and I cried out in pain. Who are you? It hurts so much. I'm Jiang Kuaishu. Junjun, it's my fault. I was wrong. Please don't leave me. Okay. He looked into my eyes and pleaded, damn it. How dare you come to find Junjun? Xiao Juo directly pulled him over and landed a punch on his face. Xiao Juo was 189 centimeters tall, much taller than Jiang Kuaishu, in terms of fighting. Xiao Juo had never been at a disadvantage. However, this fight didn't seem to show any signs of stopping. I finally couldn't hold back and shouted loudly, Jiang Kuaishu, I've lost my memory. I don't remember you. As soon as I said this, sure enough, he froze in place, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and sneered, impossible. Junjun can't forget me. It's impossible. You really won't give up until you hit a dead end. Take a look at this. Xiao Juo threw the diagnosis report in Jiang Kuaishu's face. I saw his expression change from disbelief to doubt, and then to shock. It was quite a spectacle. Impossible, impossible. He seemed to keep repeating these three words. It seemed that he couldn't accept that I remembered Chichi, remembered Du Yu, remembered Xiao Juo, and remembered many people and things around me, but I just couldn't remember everything about him. Wan Junjun, how could you forget me? How could you? He still didn't give up and hired the most top-notch medical team in Li City to examine me again. The result remained the same. Looking at the latest diagnosis report, his eyes were red, and he looked pitiful. Finally, he left in a state of despair. Just when I thought he wouldn't come again, he came the next day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. Every time he came, he didn't say anything, just kept looking at me. I felt so uncomfortable being stared at that I finally couldn't help but let him in. He was overjoyed and sat by the bedside, nervously rubbing his hands. I don't know why, but he seemed like a headless fly to me. He said he wanted to tell me a story. In the end, that girl was kicked downstairs. The man thought she was dead and was in a daze every day. Finally, he learned from his ex-girlfriend that the girl wasn't dead. That girl is so silly. But why are you crying? I blinked and asked him. That girl is you, Jiang Kuaishu said, looking at me with red eyes. I was suddenly jolted out of the story. Me, I was the girl in the story that he couldn't forget. Seeing Jiang Kuaishu in such a state of grief, I actually felt a bit of satisfaction. Heh, indeed. The best way to defeat the white moonlight is to die a more painful death than the white moonlight and then not actually die. So, you're the reason this leg was amputated. I suddenly raised my voice. Seeing Jiang Kuaishu's silence and helplessness, I directly slapped him. What a scumbag, Junjun. I don't expect your forgiveness, but can you give me another chance? I can't live without you. I will definitely find someone to cure you, Jiang Kuaishu said humbly. Fine. Then go to the entrance of the hospital and kneel there for a whole night. I said to him expressionlessly. Coincidentally, it rained heavily that night. He just knelt there, motionless, as a result. Everyone in the circle knew that the prestigious president of the Jiang group was kneeling at the entrance of the hospital, begging for my, Wan Junjun's, forgiveness. Some people were just watching the drama, some thought he deserved it, and some people sent me messages asking me to forgive him. Are you really going to forgive him? Xiao Juo beside me handed me an orange and asked tentatively. Forgive him? I was once able to love someone wholeheartedly. And now I can hate someone by any means necessary. He doesn't deserve my forgiveness. I don't know when Jiang Kuaishu left, after being drenched in the rain all night. He must not have felt good. The next morning, after having breakfast, Xiao Juo was going to wheel me out to get some sun. Unfortunately, the door of the ward was pushed open with a loud noise again. Sigh, poor door. She looked down at me haughtily. First, she took a good look at my sorry state, and then she cursed me viciously. Wan Junjun, you bitch. Why haven't you died yet? She must be Jiang Kuaishu's white moonlight. Xia WN. I didn't expect that the high and mighty white moonlight would one day end up being despised. I looked at Xiao Juo beside me with a helpless expression, and he looked at me in the same way. He indicated with a helpless look that he couldn't hit a woman, seeing that she was ignored. This further enraged Xia Wn. I don't know where she took out a fruit knife from and turned to rush towards me. Zhenzhen, the expected pain didn't come. I opened my eyes and saw Jiang Huaishu. I don't know where he came from, but he stood in front of me. Sorry, a shoe. I didn't mean to, a shoe. Xia Wn dropped the fruit knife tremblingly, her eyes unfocused, and she looked around in a panic. She looked like a madwoman. After Xia Wn was taken away, Jiang Huaishu stood weakly in front of my hospital bed. His lips were chapped, and his face had an abnormal redness. He must have had a fever. Sorry, Zhenzhen, I'm tired. You can leave. Also, don't come again in the future. Our relationship is already over, isn't it? I directly interrupted him. After watching that farce, I was physically and mentally exhausted and had no mood to go out anymore. Zhenzhen, it doesn't matter if you've forgotten. I still remember. And I won't give up. Jiang Huaishu left these words and turned to leave. The next day, Xiao Juo brought the news that Xia Wn had been arrested and imprisoned for attempted murder. I didn't care what happened after that. In the following half-month, except for my good friend Chichi visiting me from time to time, the ward returned to its former peace. It snowed on the winter solstice, and my body had recovered a great deal. I could walk around on my own. I stood by the window looking at the snowy scenery and heard the sound of the ward door being pushed open behind me. Brother Xiao Juo, you're here. I turned around and smiled. It wasn't Xiao Juo, but Jiang Huaishu. I immediately put away the smile on my face and said distantly, "Why are you here?" I saw the light in his eyes flash and then go out suddenly. Then he smiled gently and said, "Zhenzhen, today is the winter solstice. I made dumplings with my own hands. They are your favorite corn and shrimp filling." Regardless of whether I responded or not, he opened the thermal box and continued talking to himself. "You used to love the dumplings I made the most. When you recover, I'll take you to Jushan to see the snowy scenery. Okay, you love snow the most. There's a lot of snow this year, and it will definitely be very beautiful." He was immersed in his own fantasies, as if we still loved each other as before. "Sorry, I don't remember, and I don't want to remember either," I said to him directly. Slap. The lid of the thermal box was accidentally knocked to the ground by him. He bent down in a hurry to pick it up. "Oops, I came at a bad time. I didn't interrupt you, Mr. Jiang, did I?" "Zhenzhen, these are freshly cooked chestnuts. Take them quickly." Xiao Juo's appearance broke the awkward situation just now. He looked at the dumplings in Jiang Huaishu's hand, twitched the corners of his mouth, and then said to Jiang Huaishu unceremoniously, "You shouldn't kidnap Zhenzhen with your memories. Without you, her life will only be more wonderful. Zhenzhen, please don't leave me." Jiang Huaishu stood there like a child who had made a mistake, fidgety and uneasy. Seeing my intimate behavior with Xiao Juo, he hesitated to speak and finally didn't say anything. When he left, he seemed to muster up the courage, looked up at me, and tried to smile at me, but tears suddenly fell down. "Zhenzhen, am I really going to lose you forever?" I looked out the window and smiled. I'm too familiar with the feeling of loss. It really hurts, so much so that even after the wound heals, it will flare up and torture me again and again in the silent night. That feeling is unbearable. "So, Jiang Huaishu, I lied to you. I recovered my memory a week ago. You should also taste the pain I've endured. The cold winter is finally coming to an end. What are you going to do next?" Xiao Juo put away his usual carefree attitude and asked me seriously. "My body is almost fully recovered, and I want to go out and take a look around. Aren't I taking you out for a walk every day?" Xiao Juo looked innocent. "I mean leaving Li City and going to see the outside world. How can that be? What if something happens to you when you're alone? A girl traveling alone without anyone to take care of her is not okay." "No, I'm going to go with you." Xiao Juo immediately became agitated. I glanced at him, and he immediately became obedient. He knew he couldn't persuade me. So he prepared all kinds of equipment and medicine for me. After packing up, I set off with light luggage. I went to ancient cities with profound historical and cultural heritage, and saw the endless prairie. I chatted with homeless people in the romantic city and shared dried fruits with rock climbers under the snow-capped mountains. I also met people from different regions, listened to their stories, and realized that besides love, there are so many things worth looking forward to. Due to the prosthetic leg, I faced many challenges and difficulties along the way, but fortunately, most of the people I met on the way were kind. 2 years later, I woke up in a homestay in a small town and received a message from Xiao Duo, "You little rascal, it's autumn, come back and take a look." 3 days later, I stood at the airport in Li City. "Wan Zhenzhen, you're so heartless. You've been gone for 2 years and didn't even send a message to let me know you were safe," Xiao Duo said. Pinching my face angrily, I knew I was in the wrong, so I twirled around in front of him. "Brother Xiao Duo, I'm fine now, aren't I? Come on, let's go quickly. Didn't you say you prepared a surprise for me?" To avoid him from nagging non-stop, I directly threw my luggage to him and turned to get into the car. After getting out of the car, it was a Chinese-style courtyard with a swing in it, covered with maple leaves. "Was this courtyard prepared for me?" I said in surprise. "Who else would it be for if not you? I'm giving you a home so that you'll know to come back when you go out again." Xiao Duo looked at me quietly. "There's something I don't think I should hide from you. After you left, Jiang Huaishu couldn't find you and came to me many times. I was so annoyed that I beat him up." Xiao Duo paid attention to my expression. Seeing that I didn't react much, he continued, "Later, he didn't bother me for a long time. I met him again in the hospital. He said he was sick, with gastric cancer. He really deserved it. But fortunately, it was detected in time, and he can still be saved. Do you want to go and see him?" I stood under the maple tree, looking at the already fully red leaves and said, "Since we've already separated, there's no need for us to meet again." Another autumn came. The autumn wind blew around the courtyard again and again. Xiao Duo put a coat on me. When my friends talked about him, I said it was all in the past. We once loved each other, so for those who have loved, there are no regrets in love. Jiang Huaishu's side story. Zhenzhen, at the moment when you were kicked downstairs, I regretted it. I admit that Xia Wn has always been a thorn in my heart. She disliked my nothingness when I was young and turned away to go abroad, abandoning me. So I secretly swore that I would definitely make a name for myself and be superior to others. Finally, I succeeded. Similar headlines appeared in various entertainment sections, and for a while I, Jiang Huaishu, became the topic of people's conversations during meals and leisure time. I desperately tried to prove to her how stupid she was to leave me back then. Sure enough, as I wished, I saw the look of regret in her eyes. "But I forgot that my success was due to your company, and your leg was disabled because of me. I was blinded by vanity. After being rescued, I planned to deal with the mess in the company first and then go to see you, but Xia Wn told me that you were dead, that you had fallen from the 5th floor and died on the spot." My heart felt as if it had been torn out. During that period, I became a puppet without emotions, constantly numbing myself with alcohol. Later, I accidentally overheard Xia Wn talking on the phone with someone and she mentioned your name. It turned out that she was behind all of this. Her pregnancy was fake. She had carefully planned that kidnapping case, and finally, she lied to me, saying that you were dead. I deeply regretted my actions. I knew that you couldn't forgive me. I couldn't forgive myself either. When I finally found you, you said that you didn't remember me. Of course, I didn't believe it. How could Wan Zhenzhen, who loved me so much and was willing to sacrifice her life for me, not remember me? After leaving the ward, I frantically searched for doctors and consulted them about your condition. The results I got were all the same. Xiao Duo didn't lie to me. I still didn't give up. I wanted to evoke your memories with the things we had done together before, but Xiao Duo said that I shouldn't kidnap you with memories, and that your life could be even more wonderful. Yes, no one is indispensable to another. I've done so many despicable things. I was ungrateful, blind in both eyes and heart, and I pushed the girl who loved me wholeheartedly into the abyss. But I realized, Zhenzhen, that I really can't live without you. After you left, my eating habits became worse and worse, and finally, I was diagnosed with gastric cancer. Duan Yu was by my side when I received the examination results. He sneered at me and said, "Brother Jiang, is this considered retribution?" Yes, this is retribution. Maybe God thought it was too easy for me to just die like this. After the surgery, I just lived day by day. That day, Xiao Duo came to me and said that you would come back in 3 days. I was both shocked and delighted, but then I thought, you probably wouldn't want to see me again. That day, I watched you from a distance at the airport. You looked much better in spirit than before and had gained a little weight. It seemed that you were living a happy life.